Philippe. Welcome to Can't Beat 'em, Eat 'em podcast. I have my guest today, very, very wonderful guest, Dr. Chef Dawn Aubrey. Dr. Dawn, Chef Dawn, how you would like me to call you, really, because I've been calling you chef and doctor at the same time. You are one of the few who carry all of those titles. So what about if you enlighten us with who really you are?
Well, really, Dawn is just fine.
So humble.
But you also are the person who started calling me Dr. Dawn, and many people still call me that.
Well, isn't it the right thing to call you? You earned it.
Thank you.
So, you told us a little bit about, what do you do and pretty much how we met and that kind of thing. So I want the viewer to really understand who you are, really, because you are an amazing woman to my book, I'm telling you. And please don't be humble.
Oh, you are incredibly kind, incredibly kind. And I'm so glad to be here today. So, wow, where to begin? So our journey started together when I was the director of dining at the University of Illinois. And it started with our collaboration, our teaming up to address what was seen as a problem, but address it in a sustainable manner and in a way that was one that would feed our students, feed them well, but also give them the opportunity to address the issue of Asian carp and the overpopulation that ultimately was, because they're such voracious feeders and they're so prolific, is that they were essentially consuming the resources of our native species. And what was really interesting about it is that in a way that it became actually part of the menu at the University of Illinois. And it's really interesting when I look back, that first year, Chef, do you know we served over 25,000 pounds?
Yeah. I remember very well. And I got to tell you, Dr. Don, you're one of the few that I have met because I worked in diverse universities and colleges, but you are one of the most incredible food director that understood truly what we were doing. It was not just a food source, a new food source to put on the menu, but also the fact that we were saving the aquatic ecosystem throughout the entire Mississippi Basin by doing so. So, tell me about. Please tell me about the student reaction when we first did that. You remember how they were excited, understanding what we were, and
I definitely remember. The students were excited. They loved it. And even those that didn't entirely understand what was happening loved it. But many of the students understood the story because, and with your help, we were able to tell that story and make sure that students understood that they were, yes, indeed, helping eat the problem. But it was even bigger than that. We were able to not only have them understand what part that they play, but it was also ended up being that we could educate them about how this was sustainable. And ultimately, Chef, I believe that's what led to the project that the Illinois Department of Wildlife and Fisheries, in conjunction with the University of Illinois, did, showing that by reducing the population of Asian carp, reducing the size, is that the native species were able to return.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was absolutely tremendous.
And, knowing this factor, still today, I have this question. People come and say, oh, well, you're not going to eradicate the Asian carp. I said, no, I'm not here to eradicate. We are not here to eradicate. We're here to take them out of the water. And by doing so, perhaps the population will come down significantly, and they can live in harmony with other native fish species. So there is no more threat in displacing both fish. And that's the goal of what we're trying to achieve. Remember?
Yes,
Yeah.
I do remember. And I remember, and this was one of the very powerful pieces of information that was shared with students, was that for every 10 pounds of a female Asian carp,
1 million eggs.
that there was about 1 million eggs.
Yeah.
With an 80%, yes, for every 10 pounds, with an 80% survival rate.
Yeah.
And that the typical female carp that because I remember going out, and I only did it once, but going out and fishing for them with gill nets in the Chillicothe outside of Peoria. And I remember there's a picture of me holding one that was 50 pounds.
Yeah, I think I saw that picture, actually. So, but it is really incredible when you know the story, the reality of this very destructive, invasive fish, the Asian carp. Not only they spawn out of style, but they also jumped out of the water, and that definitely is a big danger as well. You experienced that, did you?
Absolutely. I remember when we were in the Chillicothe with motorboats, and just the vibration of the motor itself, the fish were jumping. Some of them even jumped in the boat. And you can see how boaters and other people who are just enjoying the water as, recreationally, had become very injured. And I know that there were some very sad tales as a result of that.
Well, we need to let the world know, because this is going to be on YouTube, that you were, as a matter of fact, the first food director to put an invasive species on a dining hall menu for students. And that's a fact. Correct?
That is my understanding. I don't know of anyone else who did.
After that, there were a few followers, but you were the first one I know.
Well, it was definitely with your help. And also, it was just, as dining at University of Illinois, we were very sustainability focused. And this was just very consistent with all of the efforts that we had made already. This was just another but very impactful measure for us to take. I remember when we had worked with one of the fishermen who had actually brought in several thousand pounds. I want to say it was about 3,000 pounds.
Is that Clint Carter?
that was really interesting.
Yeah. Was it Clint Carter?
It was Clint Carter.
Yeah. This man is unbelievable. Probably one of the best Asian carp fishermen that I have met. Him and Lance Gregerson, I think his last name. Both
Yes.
two took more water than the entire political system that spent billions and billions of dollars trying to eradicate or study the fish. I mean, it's amazing. But let me tell you, Dr. Don, the situation today, okay, of the Asian carp. I don't know if you follow much on that, but there is no much activities. I mean, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Kentucky, Illinois, all of it, we still pretty much in the same level of commercial fishery, if I may say, taking those fish out that we were when I just started. I mean, so many have failed. That's the point I want to make. Trying to do something like a quick dollar. I call it a quick dollar because there was no any homework on what was trying to achieve, like the export into foreign country. That failed. The trying to process those fish into fish meal. Many have failed in doing that. On the human consumption, because it is so difficult, and I know that firsthand because it took me literally good 15 years to finally have a formula that can remove the bone and having the perfect fish food product for human consumption. But if you don't do the homework, and you know that, Dr. Don, then I got to tell you, it will be very difficult to create a demand for those fish so the commercial fishermen can go there and take those fish out of the water. Now, one thing we need to talk about is you did, because of your students coming from Asia, and I've been to China, I've been throughout Asia actually, and I understand what you did there when you were cooking the whole fish, because that's what they do there.
Yeah.
They eat fish whole with a bone in, and they know how to do it. Here, we spoiled. We don't want no bones in our fish. That's the problem. So
Yes.
tell me about that whole fish.
Well, that's an excellent point. One of our executive chefs on staff is from South Korea, and he was preparing the whole fish and doing it, plattering it, using the tongs and the like. And our students from Asia were handling it beautifully. You're absolutely correct. Our domestic students didn't handle it quite as well. So we ended up serving it simply because we were concerned that we could have, somebody consume a bone.
Yeah.
And then it would end up being a situation that could take all of this effort to make this positive, to have it not be positive anymore.
And you know how easy that is. It's not that easy, or sometimes easy to reach the top, but to stay at the top, sometimes you just need one little sequence, and then boom, the whole
Yes.
a successful operation just go down to 0.0. So we have to again rebuild. It's important when you do those kind of things like we did, is to cross all the T's and make sure that what we're doing it's clean, it's proper, and transparent to everybody. So that was interesting working with you during that few years we did this. I still believe that today, because nobody really is taking those fish still out of the water, and both of us know that those Asian carp are excellent to eat. They're very nutritious, and we did actually demonstrate that this is a very successful operation if it is done properly.
It absolutely is. And when I think back of the different, and really it was a culinary exploration with Asian carp. For example, your recipe for the fish cakes using Asian carp, exceptional. I remember us having individuals who argued with us because they thought it was crab.
You're right. You're right.
I remember that. And I remember we even added it to some of our catering events just as an extra item. We made sure that they knew what it was. And I remember having several vice chancellors who argued that it was crab.
Yeah, yeah. It's that good, the
So-
quality of it.
So obviously it's very palatable. It's very palatable. And it the two of us together worked to make sure that we demystified, or really kind of to eliminate what I would call the urban legend around carp, being that it's a mid-level feeder. It's not a bottom feeder.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of misunderstanding really about the fish in general. I will say that I'm very concerned with how prolific they are and going unchecked, because they have been found in all 48 of the contiguous states. It concerns me greatly. It is, I remember when we did the panel with the Monterey Bay Aquarium.
Oh, you were.
Let
me cut you off here. You were so instrumental to actually put the Asian carp on the list of the aquarium, Monterey Bay Aquarium checklist. So.
Well, it's green lighted, sir. It is green lighted, Chef, and I really attribute that to you.
Oh, no, I attribute that to you.
That was such a victory. It was such a victory.
Oh, my God.
And so, with that being said, just having this, it really should be a regular part of our diet.
Yeah.
And it is elsewhere in the world. It just isn't here.
I know.
And I'm really hoping that we can. I agree with you completely. If we could just simply we're not seeking to eradicate, because it would be impossible, but really just to reduce the average size would be tremendous.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely tremendous.
Yeah, absolutely. So you remember that actually I went on the other side of the planet in Vietnam, and where actually I was shipping the Asian carp IQF frozen to Vietnam. I went down Vietnam several times, trained the people how to debone the fish and make fish cake. Of course, Vietnam is different than the United States. They have a manual labor force that is just unparalleled. We can't do that here. We absolutely can't do that here. So you remember how successful this was when we went on, and the COVID-19, of course, the era of the COVID-19 shut down the whole entire process in a way where we had to wait a couple of years before we could think about what to do. And of course, with the podcast, the post COVID-19 regulation now, international, I can't go back to Vietnam and do what I did. So I'm focusing on, as you know, because we've been working on that together, and trying to opening a processing plant here in USA. And it will be a U.S. product processed in USA, which is a big deal. Simply because when it was processed in Vietnam, and God knows I love Vietnam, I love Vietnamese people, and they indeed need every help we can give them in creating jobs there too as well. We're all human. If the problem I had is product of USA processed in Vietnam, and that was kind of like very touchy for many of the buyers. But if we succeed in getting a processing plant here because the formula, the magic formula, Dr. Don, is to replace that manual labor that I had access to in Vietnam with a mechanism of food production machineries. And over the past 3 years, I pretty much came up with a blueprint where I can get the machinery efficient enough, working with technicians and so on, where we can process those fish now into actually not just fish cake, but many other type of product, and literally feed the needed. If it is students from university or a soup kitchen, however, we need to continue fighting the fight in getting those fish out of the water because they are so destructive. And you and I know that by fact, we will not stop until we can succeed at it, because I know that you are definitely a great partner into this, and you understand firsthand the problem of those Asian carp. So, tell me about what you think about if we succeed at it, how important that would be.
Well, the importance, it's going to be amazing, but almost hard to measure. Because I think that we have not fully understood, and when I say we, I'm talking about the collective we in the United States, the true extent of the destruction.
That's a fact.
The true extent of the destruction, and it's very sad to say that given that Asian carp has been found in all 48 states, and there are states that are simply surprised when they find them in ponds and lakes, and how did they get here?
Yeah.
I think that if we really did understand it, it would be on a level of, and not to be overly dramatic,
national security,
on a level of national security.
Yeah, really, literally.
Because they're that voracious and they grow so quickly.
Yeah.
And it becomes, just over time, it's exponential expansion. And we've got to get these sizes down.
Absolutely.
And we know that it works. We did it in Illinois.
Correct.
We have the measurements.
We prove ourselves, and we have to prove ourselves the hard way. There is no much harder way than what we did. Processing the fish across the planet, literally, to demonstrate that, yes, a product out of those fish, convenient to use, ready to eat, with no bones, work. It will work, and we demonstrate that for sure. So, talking about the danger of those carp, I know because I sent you some material, but they are now tackling the brackish water, the salt water in Gulf states,
yes.
Louisiana, Texas, and Mississippi, Alabama, you name it, and especially with Louisiana. And the shame is that our policymakers today here in Louisiana, they don't really care much about it because it's not a problem yet. But when it becomes a problem, it'll be way too late. Now there are brackish water area that are pretty significant in Louisiana, size-wise, where the shrimp, the Manhattan fish, crab, oysters, but mainly shrimp and Manhattan, they will come into those brackish water and spawn. And then the little one will grow into those brackish water and go back to the Gulf of Mexico. Where this breeding ground now is at stake, is under serious danger, because those Asian carp are there now. And the plankton feeder, which is the aquatic food source, literally, where a larva coming from an egg that you can barely see naked eye, they must feed on this macroscopic plankton. And those carp gobble that literally pretty much their weight size per day. So they clean up the waters literally out of those nutrients. And the little larvae from shrimp or Manhattan fish or any other, they can't survive. And, they call it, the Asian carp has been called the silent killer. And that's a good name for them because they don't really eat the fish, but they eat the food source that help them
Yes.
survive and
Yes.
producing into those areas. So this is a big danger for us to have that going on. Having some of our wildlife and fishery officials understanding that, we have a new wildlife and fishery secretary now that I will have to go and educate her pretty much on what's going on and see what measure can be taken. But it's not about depending on the politics, Dr. Dunn, because like I know, that it's not. How can I say that? Possible. They have all the things, better to their eyes to do than understanding the problem and trying to support what we're trying to do. So it's up to us, Dr. Dunn. It's up to us. There is no doubt. John F. Kennedy once said, "It's not what you can do for your country, but what the country what you can do, what the country can do for you,
For you.
and but what you can do for your country." Remember that, right?
Country.
These were
Yes.
great words, but tell me today, this is gone, long gone. Nobody. We depend on our politicians. We depend on people that really not understand what needs to be done. That's why we need to grab the bull by the horn and continue fighting that fight. Do you agree?
I agree completely. And, when I think, as I was listening to you, it made me think. So, the question is, how did they get here? And there's a variety of answers, but it was typically they were brought here to clean water.
By the
Whether
FDA.
it be the Chicago River, whether it be
It was Arkansas.
where there is, fish containment, growing areas, and, flooding occurred. And here we are. And what's really especially interesting about this, just to show what survivors Asian carp is that much of that, when they were introduced here in the U.S., that was in the 70s.
Yeah.
And that was in one area and then two areas. And now you fast forward to the 2000s and they're in all 48 states.
It's amazing, and it is a non-stop. And incredibly, those fish survive the cold weather, and they survive the hot weather. They adapt and survive. It's amazing.
It is. It is truly amazing. It's truly amazing.
Yeah.
It really, at the end of the day, we are, when it comes to the food supply, we are the apex predator. And we need to make Asian carp part of our diet. And it's delicious. So it's not exactly a hardship.
Yeah. Well,
it's just a matter of making it available.
Yeah. In your position as a pretty much handling the food into dining hall in universities, diverse universities, the seafood today, the price that is going up and up and up, and the availability on getting wild-caught U.S. fish, for instance. Is it today still feasible to see wild-caught U.S. fish for your college into dining hall, or do you have to buy the imported farm-raised fish? What? Just tell me about that.
Sure. Well, I work for Compass Group.
Mm-hmm.
They're based in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
And here in the States are known as Compass Group USA. And I'm in the Chartwell sector, so higher education. We have very strict standards around seafood.
Okay.
So we are serving green lighted seafood, as in Monterey Bay Aquarium green lighted. We are serving wild caught. We're also serving farm raised. But it's very specific as to what it is. So farm raised salmon will never be served.
Why
as
that?
an example. Because it's not considered sustainable unless it is raised in very specific areas. One is in Maine, but then there's another one that is in South America. With that being said, yes, it is on the menu. Now, the price has gone up tremendously.
Yeah, no.
Absolutely tremendously. So, is it on the menu? Yes. Is it as frequently menued as it was previously? No. It's too costly.
Yeah, I know.
It's just too costly. However, and this is a really good example, is however, Asian carp really would be a very economical way to introduce a wild caught
Correct.
fish to our plates.
Yeah. And then
And it's a shame, Chef. I apologize. It's a shame, Chef, because I think COVID-19 really slowed everything down. There are still supply chain issues to this day. It has improved, but there are products, value added, that are not available anymore.
Yeah.
As a result of what we experienced.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, the Asian cupcake, for instance, I mean, silverfin cake, no longer available because of the COVID-19. But as you explained so well, the price structure on what you can get, you're very limited with it. I mean, that's a fact. The other side of the coin with the Asian carp is that we can definitely get a product out there that will suit your need, not only with a wild caught fish, but also the economics, where you can actually afford to get such a product and feed the students with it. But the other side of the coin is that by doing so, we're saving the entire Mississippi basin of a huge threat was Asian carp. I mean, we will significantly reduce the population of those invasive Asian carp. That's the other side of the coin by serving a product like that. Is U.S. wild caught. It's very nutritious, and the economics would work for sure, and it's a transparent solution. It really is. So we need to continue, Dr. Dawn, and hopefully, in a couple of months or a year or so, and hopefully I will live long enough to see it, but we need to continue our fight out there and see what can we do intelligently to provide a sustainable fish product for your dining hall, for students in general, because I love the young generation. I got 2 young daughters myself, and at the same time, saving the ecosystem. Saving the entire Mississippi basin out of a very dangerous invasive fish. So we good, are we?
Yes, we are. And I will say, Chef, I believe very strongly that we owe it to future generations, and truly is recognized as a problem, and it gets far worse. You're absolutely correct. It will be too late. And I would hate to see what that would mean for our native species, what that would mean recreationally, what that would mean in so many ways.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine not being able to kayak.
Yeah.
For fear of becoming injured, as an example. And that's a very small example.
Yeah.
But I think we do owe this to future generations.
Oh, absolutely. I got to tell you something about future generation. It happened in your cafeteria, actually, at your dining hall. We were doing a promotion. I think probably was the second time we were there. And I had this big sign out there, if you remember, can't beat them, eat them, the Asian carp, saving the ecosystem. We have this big old advertising panel, and we were serving these cakes. And you have actually at the time the whole fried fish too as well, the Asian carp. So we are having so many type of different good product out of those fish. And I remember it was three young ladies, that students in their 20s, that were passing by, and I stopped them. Would you like to try a fish cake? And she said, "Oh no, we're vegetarian." So one of them read the sign, saving the ecosystem. She stopped. She came back with her two friends and said, "We're saving the ecosystem. I'm gonna try it." And they went and tried those fish. They love it so much.
Is sustainable.
Yeah.
And how it benefits Monterey Bay Aquarium understood immediately the
Correct.
value in native species, why it is positive, why we need to proceed this way. Marine Stewardship Council, though, which of course provides a certification on products, I want to see them truly recognize this as how we're being good stewards, and why this is positive. That's really what I'm hoping, because that truly changes the landscape for us, because we're trying to do this and we're convincing people one at a time, but we need to convince more people and have product available that's certified.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I'm looking up on my book here when I had on the whole entire Mississippi basin spread out throughout the entire USA, and it's covered more than 2/3 of the country. But you got 1.5 million miles of river into that basin. 1.5 million. Okay. At one time, according to Illinois Department of Natural Resources, they was said that it was literally around 5 tons of fish every river miles, and that was 12 years ago. Can you imagine today the density of those fish? How that cannot be sustainable for that body you were talking about, Stewart. Marion Stewart, that we need to go back at them and demonstrate to them,
Yes.
the
Yes.
sustainability of those invasive fishes, species, and the danger they represent. Why it is important to put them out there, and then I mean that's just logic to do so. I think we need to fight this, continue to fight this in this direction to get those guys on board. That will help tremendously to when we produce those fish into fish cake, Asian cup into fish cake or other fish patties or whatever it is, then these guys need to be on board with us.
Yes. Agreed.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely agreed.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. Well, Dr. Don, I appreciate your time. I really appreciate your time, and we will do that again, probably another maybe 6 months, and see where we're at. Meanwhile, we keep our line of communication open. And again, happy Valentine, by the way, for you.
Oh,
And
thank you.
and I know you can be busy out there. And thank you again for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chef. Anytime. And I look forward to future conversations and our collaborating
All right.
to eat this problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Don, we appreciate you. If you like it, please subscribe it. This is Dr. Don and Chef Philippe with Can't Beat 'em, Eat 'em.